Today, I'm here with Scott Walter. Scott also attended the We Robot event in October. You had an opportunity to revisit the CyberCab on display at
Mhm.
the Tampa Bay Mall, but also you share with me that you had an incredible insight to share about the Robovan and the role it's going to play that people really haven't talked about much online. Let's get into it.
Yeah, we get to see and ride in the CyberCab, which was rather exciting, and also see the Robovan. That was not what I was expecting. Everyone said there was going to be something else. That was not what I thought was going to be shown, and I don't think you expected it either.
Expect a Robovan.
I
I
did. I
I
didn't.
was thinking of maybe a cyber van if we were lucky.
That's what everyone was thinking, or something else. But it wasn't the Robovan, and this is something that Franz is very proud of. Definitely love the aesthetic because it has that Art Deco look to it that was just really cool. So I see why he likes it. But
Yeah.
it was a head scratcher of like, what do they see? What's the role of this thing?
Let's first
Yeah.
talk about the CyberCab.
Yeah. Okay. The cybercab makes sense, right? Because we know Uber and Lyft are pretty successful. If you can come up with an Uber or Lyft that is driverless, that could be even more successful. When you're trying to design that, you're really saying, let's design it around the passenger. So what are the most comfortable seats in a car? The front
I don't
seats. The front
Okay.
seats are the most comfortable. And when you get into a Lyft or an Uber, which seats do you get into?
The back seat.
All right. So you're sitting in the most uncomfortable seats, right? And part of the reason you're not sitting in the front seat is because you need a driver. One of the things that's really nice about the CyberCab is that you're getting the best seat
Yeah.
because you don't have to deal with a driver. And the seats are like business class. The door opening
Mhm.
is much bigger because everyone's like, why a two-seater? Of course, we all know why is a two-seater because the majority of cab rides, Uber rides
One
are
person.
one or two passengers. The reason you need a 3 or 4 seat car is because there's always a driver. So there's technically always two passenger plus driver. But if you get rid of it, that means you really can do what you need to with a two-seater. Two-seater does not make sense for Uber unless it's driverless. So you get a bigger door opening, a really nice seat, very spacious as far as the leg room, and it's designed in such a way that it's not meant for ownership. So it's lacking all the things everyone expects in a car. Besides a steering wheel and pedals,
Yeah.
there is no glove compartment. There are no
So tell the
pockets in the
truth.
doors. The idea is making sure no one can leave anything behind. So there's no place to recharge your cell phone. Now,
Mhm.
there might be a USB port or something like that, but they don't have some place where you can put your cell phone down and then you leave the CyberCab and you forgot your cell phone.
Yeah.
So a lot of these little things that you might think are annoyances aren't there for a reason. They actually have visors in there. And I asked, why do you have the visors? I said, you don't need visors in here. Really, they're just for a driver. And they're like,
Mm.
it's because we're required by NHTSA. They had to have it. But there's no makeup mirror in there. That's costly. And everyone's going to be like, my wife won't like it. It doesn't have a makeup mirror. That's the center screen. Trust me, you'll turn that into a mirror. My wife complained about the fact that there's no rear window and that she wouldn't be able to see out the rear window and see if there's anyone approaching. So that's what you use the cameras on the screens. Oh, but I
Yeah.
still like the mirror. And then it's like the thing about mirrors is that if you can see them, they can
But
see you.
yeah,
Did you get a chance to look at the CyberCab again?
I did not. I was extremely impressed with it when I
Hmm.
saw it. I basically felt like the design's perfect, and when
Hmm.
we were able just to see online how the luggage thing looks, I think that's perfect. You can't get anything caught back there.
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah, yeah,
basically can go in one way and out one way, so
yeah.
nothing's
It
gonna
was.
get caught. It's gonna be
Mhm.
quick to get people in and out. It was a very comfortable car. I felt like the level that you're getting in at is very good. The
It
lip of
it
it's
it
good.
is. They had it on display here in Tampa over Christmas,
What
and
else did you learn just spending more time with it?
unfortunately, we couldn't get in. It was CyberCab number 15 up there, which I actually have a video of it going around the studio, which is funny because I look at it and then I said, "Oh, look, it's number 15. It's the same one. We've seen this already." But of course, they had it roped off. And the funny thing is, when we went into the Tesla shop, and this is the 29th to 30th of December, it was the only car in the store.
Mhm.
All the others had been sold. It's like, where are they? Everything is gone. And, we had no displays. People coming to test the store, and all there's like Optimists and the CyberCab, the two
Yeah.
things you can't buy. That just showed that everything was going. And the CyberCab was more interesting to get the reaction of everyone else to see who it was. So I
Mhm.
brought my family up to have them look. Everyone is like pointing out these things. They're like, well, it doesn't have that. And I gave them, it's not about owners. I wouldn't buy it. It doesn't have this. It's not about you buying it. You don't get it. It's supposed to be transportation only. And it doesn't have this. Yeah, it's not supposed to. So it doesn't have a glove compartment. I keep on telling them it doesn't have all these things that a car, which is is based around ownership needs to have.
Yeah.
And so you get rid of all that stuff. So it doesn't have a frunk. I was 100% sure it was front wheel drive because they could move the penthouse out of there and put everything up there. So you can drop the whole drive unit out. The rear wheels are freewheeling. It makes absolute sense. So the simplicity that's there, they're just going to whoop, pop the whole front end in. You get everything you need. The control system, and then skateboard is where the batteries are. So the integration becomes super easy. And again, I think the one thing my wife complained about, she said, "Oh, I don't like the fact that there's no rear window to see back. I like to be able to see back there." And I'm like, when you're in an airplane, are you able to see behind you? Oh no. You know, it's like, and what about a screen? The screen could act as rear view mirrors. You want to have that. So if you're looking in a side mirror or rear mirror, and you can see someone, because women are concerned about this, right? They're concerned, like, I want to see if someone's approaching. So, do you know if you can see that person in the mirror, they can see you. That's how mirrors work. Okay. So
That's creepy, Scott.
oh, really? It's like, yes. So if you want to make sure there's no one outside your vehicle without them knowing you're in the vehicle, you don't want mirrors. You want a camera.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a benefit to not
And
have
you
a
do
rear
want to
view.
put the camera on the screen. So you
Yeah,
can,
I'm sure there'll
yeah,
be. They already do it right now. Any camera you want to have. If you want to see what your surroundings look like when you're ready to get out of the cab, you can do that.
in order for the doors to close, you gotta fasten your seatbelt.
Yeah.
And for you to get the doors to open, you just unbuckle your seatbelt.
Yeah, it's very easy. At first, I was concerned the seats were too low until I sat in the car. I was like, oh, it's a lot easier. I thought it was going to be falling a long way to boom,
Yeah.
until I get in there. This is actually very easy. The door opening is so spacious; it's very easy to get in. You don't have to crane your neck or do anything like that. I would just come off of a back injury, and it's like I had done everything with PT to make sure I could make that flight out there. And it was like still a little stiff coming off, and I was like, okay, what's it going to be like getting in? Real easy getting out.
Even if we had to crane our neck.
No, absolutely not. It was like you were just in, because there is no B pillar. There's an A and a C pillar. That's it. So it's a very wide door. I think a standard 2-door car has a very big car. It makes it very easy to get into. It's the people that are getting the back seats that could never get in, right? Because there was really no way to get in. Which is why you made the door opening so big. So it's the same thing. The other way to think about it is it's like business class seating. It's a very wide, spacious seat, which means is at some point they think they really need to have a 3-seater. They just put in economy class seats. You just have a row of 3 in the front. That's it. There's more than enough room to put 3 people in there if you want to. So there could be that variant if they think it's so popular and the complaints are like, oh, you still need that 3-seater.
Yeah. Or you just order another robo-taxi.
You can, but if you get that,
not all 3 people get to sit together.
Yeah,
I think that's like you and I've lost a lot of weight. You're fairly in shape. But I think that's not the case for a lot of Americans. There's a lot of people who are much bigger shouldered and all that. So I felt like the width of the seat was a lot more than I needed. So I agree with you that way.
It's like business
It
class
felt
seating.
like a little overly big, but I think most Americans will actually like that.
Yes, absolutely. And again, the thing is designed to make sure there's no place to lose anything. So some people said, but there's no place to put my cell phone and charge my phone in there. Exactly. That way you won't leave it behind.
Yeah.
And then you do have the 2 little cup holders, and that's about it. The doors, there's absolutely nothing to put trash in or anything else. I made sure it's not there. So what you notice,
and there's a wall
is
between the front and the back.
You notice what's missing. And I think Brian White discovered that wall is not just a separator. It's actually also structural. There's 2 reasons for it to be there. And the one is to keep people from getting in the back, just keep you from throwing chip bags back there or whatever, to make it a lot easier to clean. We know that there are some changes. If you look in there, you'll see that there's standard carpeting. And a lot of the reason cars have this carpeting, and I think it's to trap all the dirt that you can't get out. But I think a lot of the reason that carpeting is there is for sound suppression and not necessarily for easy cleanup. And that's why you have to put your own mats down to keep them from getting dirty in the wintertime. They're obviously going to be putting some kind of mats down there that are very easy to clean. So it's not going to be carpeting, but behind it will have a soft background to make sure the acoustics in that thing is actually very nice. So easy to clean, no way you can leave anything behind. You really want to look at it from the standpoint of what's missing. Oh, there's no rear view mirror, there's no steering wheel, no pedals. Did you freak out when you jumped in the car and it was suddenly driving by itself?
I was excited that the moment had come where they had a car without a steering wheel. I was really excited to see the design. I felt like the design's perfect. It's also very aerodynamic. I was super excited by the moment and I enjoyed the drive, and it feels like a normal version
Yeah,
13
yeah,
drive.
yeah, yeah. It was weird. I got in there with John Gibbs. We jumped in probably because we're so used to our own cars driving. It wasn't like we were freaked out when it took off. It was just very natural. And then we realized, I said, were we supposed to be a little bit shocked or something about that? It's like it
I
just
I'm
felt,
guessing they had
yeah,
a remote supervisor, even though it's on a private
yeah,
road.
yeah, yeah.
I'm guessing they had someone ready to take over. But you're right. There was this very slight notion in my mind. I think I'm an early adopter.
Hmm.
These things that would give most people a little fear. I got used to the system, so already like version
Hmm.
12.5 was pretty good. I thought that it would be fine. But yeah, there's a certain thing of like, I don't have a brake. They didn't give me instructions on how to stop the car. There's
Got to go.
nothing I could do. It was unsupervised.
But it wasn't on the freeway. I mean, if it was on the freeway, you might have been a little bit nervous going 70
Yeah.
miles an hour. It was going, what, 15, 20 miles an hour max, probably through those streets. So, yeah, it felt quite comfortable. And I probably would have been fine on the highway because my car drives on the highway all the time as well. There is that sense of comfort of really knowing it. You could have to take over if you need to. We'll get past that point pretty soon. This was just a really nice design. I was pleased with it because I expected certain things that I had guessed ahead of time. Oh, there won't be a glove compartment. There's no glove compartment. I was right on that one. So I went through the checklist. Of
I
course,
was wrong. No center console. I thought they would put the cup holder on the floor, but that's actually the
yeah,
wrong choice because that's harder for people. People are not expecting that. The better way to do it is to have it next to the
right there,
seat.
right next to you. It's a more, but it's not a center console in the normal way. It's like there's nothing that opens up. There's no
Right.
place for you to throw trash or lose anything in there. There's just the cup holders, and that's where the switches were for the door. So that kind of simplifies for the windows to go up and down. There was no
Okay.
controls on the doors. The controls were actually right there. It probably just simplifies it. You only have one set of switches going to one place rather than have to run two sets, everything else. Again, they thought about that. And then the material that they're going to make it out of is, we were trying to figure it out. We did our subterfuge. John had one of these mics that you clipped on with a magnet. So he had a really strong magnet with him. It's not magnetic and stuff like that. We're trying to figure out what the material is. They came right out and said, "There's just carbon composite with a vinyl wrap to give it color." And that's not the final one. All the stuff you're trying to do to figure out the material, that's not the final material. This was a prototype.
Mhm.
And that was the quickest way to prototype it. We couldn't really find out what the final material is. Some people said it's not stainless. It's definitely not stainless steel. But one engineer would say, no paint shop. And he just looked at me and winked and said, I'll leave it there. So it was pretty clear. No paint shop means we've got to come up with something that does not require paint.
Mhm.
Is wrap going to be good enough for bare metal to protect it? So you're going to need something that doesn't corrode. But if it's any sort of metal, that requires a stamping. And the two parts of the automotive factory, which are just complicated and expensive, are the paint shop and the press shop. You get rid of those two, everything becomes a lot easier.
And I don't know if it's pretty, but you can do some good things with plastic. Sandy Monroe
Mhm,
was
mhm.
talking about some very
Yeah,
high strength plastics they have. Um,
yeah, they're better.
if you can make them look good,
You don't need
age
to
over
make it look
time.
good. You need to make it look good if you own the car. You
That's
really
true.
care?
Yeah.
Everyone keeps on thinking of it from, it's like, I don't care about the gaps or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's a CyberCab. It's not mine. I
Yeah.
don't care. It's clean and it gets me
Yeah.
safely from point A to point B. I don't care if there's a scratch on the outside or
Yeah.
if,
I got in an Uber drive from like a
uh,
beater
yeah,
$2,500 car,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I rolled my eyes at first, maybe.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
at
A
least in
little,
my
I mean,
head, I'm like,
it's not,
that's not a Tesla or whatever. But
it's,
I get in, and then halfway through the ride, I totally forget about it.
yeah, so long as the interior is clean and the seats are comfortable, you're not going to care. I think the other thing, Saturn went down there, and the problem is there were certain parts of the vehicle that had
Down
to
the
be
road of
metal.
plastic. Yeah.
So they had half plastic and half metal in different places for crush zones, and also the fact that it had internal combustion engines, so the hood couldn't be plastic. And so the matching those colors is tricky. But if the whole thing is plastic, you don't have to worry about the colors. Plus, that was over 25 years ago, 30 years ago. We
Have
gave up.
evolved so much.
The plastics are so much better. And if I
Yeah.
recall, I mean, there's even the point that you're injecting like powdered metals into plastics now to give them new strength. The
Mhm.
Dyson vacuum cleaners, the first one was a special kind of composite plastic. It's all injection molded. That just tells you they're working on something that's not going to just be plastic. It's going to be a little bit more. They'll probably be easily to control the color. You don't need a paint shop. If you want them blue, okay, just put some blue dye in and that's it. Injection molding is really fast. You don't need a whole lot of stages like you have. I'm sure if you actually look at the surface that they have on there, it's probably like a one-step thing. So you're not going to have these really complicated dyes to do a very complicated kind of part. It should be something that's straightforward that they'll just be able to pump out. So that'll bring the cost down. They'll bring the maintenance down, everything. And again, stop thinking like it's a car that you want to own, that you're really proud of, that you want to make sure that
Well, yes,
the look is perfect.
I think Tesla wants it to look cool.
They do, yes.
So that it encourages uptake. It encourages people to want to be seen, getting into it, want to do videos of them coming out to help with the early adoption of it.
But it might be just like the Model T. It comes in one color, gold.
That's all right. I got my Robovan over here, my picture of the Robovan.
Oh, the other day, it occurred to me the whole point of the Robovan.
Let's hear. I have my theory, but I want to hear
Well,
your.
part of it is it ties neatly into the CyberCab network in a particular way that I was thinking that, like on the New Year's celebration, and everyone's going to want to get home, and you get the peak pricing problem, and we want to go here. Okay, so how do you move people from a city center out to where they are in the suburbs, especially if everyone is taking a CyberCab and having to do that very long ride? What you do is you come up with a virtual mass transit system that the thing is you got to get everyone to the subway stop, okay, and then everyone from the subway stop back to their house. And that's what everyone hates is, oh, I've got to walk a bunch of blocks, go down, get in. It's like the whole idea is I want to go here, and suddenly a CyberCab comes in, and I jump in the CyberCab, and it starts driving, and then suddenly at just some random point in the city, a bunch of CyberCabs converge at that point at virtually the same time, and there's a Robovan right there. Everyone gets out, jumps in that thing, and then suddenly that thing is off on the highway, out somewhere else. Meanwhile, all those CyberCabs turn around and go back to get some more people to go to some other point. So the network is figured out. We got a bunch of people going to the same thing. Let's find a common point that we can get them to as quickly as possible, and we just meet up with that thing. And then it gets you on out there. And at some point at the ideal location, it's not going to be dropping off at everyone's house. It's just going to come into a city center, and there's going to be a bunch of CyberCabs just waiting for you. Everyone gets off, they're right in their CyberCabs, and then zip right where they need to be. So it does a bunch of things. One is it feeds that Robovan instantly with everything, with just the right people at the right time. It's there. It gets out on the highway, and rather than there being 14 CyberCabs congesting that highway from downtown out to the suburb, there's just one Robovan.
Yeah,
that's doing it. Okay, so suddenly that means you don't.
This solves a major problem. Yeah,
get you on out there, and then that's basically you get a artery capillary kind of system going on there that's feeding it really quickly, and that is the genius behind the Robovan. That it's not something separate that everyone keeps on thinking, oh yeah, this is like going to be a party bus, and like some companies are going to. It's integral. It's integral to getting the CyberCabs to work to get around the peak pricing problem. And when you need to move a mass number of people, and I think people will be fine. Plus, for a lot of people, they probably won't mind that, because the biggest concern with the CyberCab is isolation. And of course, the other thing is the way things are going in New York right now, no one really wants to be on the subway. Okay.
No.
Even though it's a very efficient thing. But at the same time, some people do like going out and seeing other people. But with the Robovan, you have a credit score basically on everyone that's getting in on the Robovan. It's just not some rando coming in off the street that's just going to start doing weird stuff. It's just, you've got the app, they know who you are, you've been behaving, you're not a jerk, and all these, and then and maybe these are people you see all the time on your commute into the city or something like that, because that'd be one way to not just do the peak. Peak happens in the morning, it happens the afternoon. So that is one way to do the longer drives that you want to do, or you want to keep, I think, the CyberCab to be very nimble and just doing the very short, quick ones. And because what a waste of the CyberCab to think about it. It's drive all the way out to the suburb, now I have to turn around and come all the way back in. That's wasting everything. And this way, the Robovan can do the much more quicker point to point along the highway with much higher capacity.
You can more quickly get to the super crazy sounding like 20 cents a mile type cost to the customer.
Yeah. Just think about it. If you had a mass transit system that was just infinitely fungible, that it was like completely
Like a
aware of
sponge.
where all the passengers are. So in
Mhm.
other words, rather than having like hard bus stops or hard subway stops, they're anywhere. They pop up at the most convenient point at that instant in time based on demand.
Mhm.
And the network is aware, and it's basically constantly self-organizing itself. So the Robovan plays the role of a subway car to
Mhm.
getting you to where you need to do in the most efficient way.
Yeah, I think this is actually an incredible insight, Scott, because I was thinking about the Robovan mainly as something that's going to be used between cities. So I was thinking as the cities as the spokes. Really,
It,
it's city to suburb and cross
yeah.
town.
So it is between cities, but yeah, it's between the suburbs. So it doesn't have to be like super long distance.
It
It
doesn't
may
have
have
to be a
roles like
2 hour drive
yeah,
to a.
it'll have roles like that. There are a lot of people that do have to do that long commute. So, I've got to I got to from New York to Philly today. And you just say that you need to go and you jump in this cab and it drops you off at some location with all the other people that are going down to Philly. And then they
Mhm.
get up and they drop you off. And so maybe there's probably one common spot, or it may be half the passengers get off at one location. The Robovan goes a little bit further to the next one because it makes more sense for the others. But the system will self-organize itself and figure it out. And more than likely, it won't be an algorithm. Eventually, this will just be turned over to AI to figure out the best way to do it, because AI is like optimizing things in ways that people did not imagine. And they look
Mhm.
at, holy cow, really? Yeah, that is a better solution. Why hadn't we
Yeah.
thought of that? So it will be one of those things that it will just constantly be transforming itself, different ways to be able to solve that problem. And again, just think congestion will go down right away. Because that
Yeah.
was my biggest concern. And I think what everyone has said is
Yeah, that was
that,
a big
eh,
concern I had, is that there'd
yes,
be that if you drop the cost per mile, let's say down below 50 cents, and
yeah,
let's say 5 years or whatever, maybe it's more, but it gets below 50 cents, people are gonna stop. They're gonna sell at least one car, if not
yeah.
more, and they're just gonna be using the robo taxis even more. And once the cost gets so low, there'll be people who travel more.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
you have more congestion. So the
Yeah,
Robovan, I think, is brilliant.
I'm trying to remember what that paradox is. There is a kind of, because when the lighting came out, and even before that, you came out with a lot of these bulbs that burnt less, and the whole idea is this is going to do is that it's going to reduce energy consumption, and
And it
because they were so
increased
darn
it
cheap,
'cause
it actually increased it. So we have even more light pollution as well. So people actually, but they think they aren't, because my bulbs are so energy efficient. I can have 10
uh,
times more bulbs now. So
yeah,
it went the same way, and they also found the same problem with highways. Is that every time they think the way we solve congestion is we just add one more lanes to our highway. Atlantic went through that. So, okay, we get 3 lanes, then we get 4. It's like, and the more you add into the congestion get worse, because all it did is encourage more and more people to live in the suburbs. So
uh,
they were coming in. And so it's just, you can't solve it. So the congestion gets worse and worse. And so that's the big concern, is that people will travel more. They'll go in there, they'll go out more, because I don't have the hassle of parking. Half the time we don't go downtown anymore. Gosh, the parking is just, the other day we wanted to go to downtown Tampa, and we didn't know there was a hockey game at the time. So I'm going in with my family, and there was like no place to park because it was
right,
all event parking. And when it's event parking, all the parking garages are $35 flat fee. And so we were
right.
down near where the hockey game was. Like, we didn't know there was a hockey game. Darn it. And so we're looking around, where are we going to find the parking for 1 hour that's not going to be $35?
Mhm.
And just solve with the CyberCab, just drop us off at any time that we want. We don't have to worry about
Yeah.
the hockey game that's going on or anything else. So
That's why a
it's
chunk of people use Uber and Lyft for their commute. Yeah, it definitely helps solve a lot of problems. It creates some new ones, but yeah, the Robovan makes sense.
and,
And
it
people
can
are
make
talking
sense.
about the Tesla
Yeah,
Semi running them in convoys. You could run the Robovans in
in
convoys
convoys as
where
well. Yeah.
they just kind of run behind each other.
And yeah, there's all sorts of schemes. So it doesn't necessarily have to be super long distance. It could also be short distances within the city where there's typically a lot of congestion, and you want to get rid of that congestion. People pile in, they go through this thing, they come somewhere else. And again, it will be that people aren't cut off that much. Now, the other advantage of CyberCab that I've been in a lot of Ubers with other people, and we've been in a couple of places recently where the stuff we've seen, we haven't really been able to talk about. And the guy next to me is like chatting about it in the Uber. And I'm just like, don't mention that.
Uh-huh.
So the thing that's really nice about the CyberCab is that you can now have these conversations without worrying about the driver up there actually listening in and going on something that was sensitive information that you realize, like, okay, I just don't want him to hear this.
Yeah.
So you can start to do your work. Now, I know there are a lot of people that like to take Uber and Lyft because they can get their job done. But if you're taking a phone call, it might be a sensitive phone call that you just
Mhm.
don't want some stranger to be listening in on and
Yeah.
knowing what's going on. And I think you'll find that there's probably some Uber drivers out there who will say that, yeah, they made a lot of money on some stock tips they got from driving people around New York City.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So that brings, I think, another reason why people would be more likely to use that, because now they realize that they do have the privacy when they absolutely need the privacy.
Yeah. We covered a ton of ground with CyberCab
Hmm.
and the Robovan. I think this is a really exciting time.
Hmm.
Tesla's no longer a boring car company. They're transitioning into the self-driving car. Version 13 is fantastic already.
Hmm.
I think it's very close to being ready. I believe it's 100 times better in version 11.
Yes,
Um,
it's much better, and it definitely feels way more human. And a
yeah.
lot of things I worried about before, it was tailgating a lot, and it was like a lot of kind of speeding
Mhm.
up, slowing down. There's still a couple of little minor things, but these are small
Stylistic.
details.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
say, for some reason, getting out of my neighborhood, it's doing a couple of weird things that going really slow, and sometimes I have to encourage it. I give it what I call the ego boost, and
Mhm.
then after that, it's fine. So when it gets out in the main roads, it's really doing quite well.
Mhm.
And that they'll solve it. And there were definitely a bunch of, oh yeah, there was a couple that it absolutely solved and it nailed, that I was so happy. I had this one turn that none of them did. Is I come up this road and it comes on to what is basically a 2-lane road at the intersection where there's a light there. And there's like a Wawa right in the corner there. And there's a right turn lane there that's like really long to get in the Wawa because everyone wants to get into it. So they made sure there's a lot of space. And that right turn lane extends all the way back to the intersection.
Mhm.
And every time FSD would take that right turn, it would go straight into the right turn lane. And no one goes in the right turn lane. Everyone knows that's a right turn only lane. When you take that turn, just go
Yeah.
into the actual. So it gets in there, and then it gets a bit confused. Oh, and then it tries to figure out how to get over. And so you're always getting and version 10, I kept on version 12. None of them could do it. So I went through there on 13, and it went right into the correct lane right away. It nailed it.
Yay.
All right. Good. Now, this was like one of those weird edge cases because I've nowhere else in the country have ever seen like a right turn lane come all the way back to the intersection like that. That is going to confuse anyone that's taking a right turn to realize they're in the wrong place, especially
Mhm.
when the right turn that's happening is way down there. But for some reason, the traffic engineers are just saying, "Wow, we've got to do something to cue the traffic." So rather than bumping the curb out and having it come in and bring it all the way back, FSD just wasn't up to the challenge until now.
Wow. So he's Scott Walter. We've been talking the Robovan and the CyberCab. And in our next video, we're going to talk about the Tesla bots. He's
Mhm.
with Visual Components and he does software around setting up a manufacturing line and figuring out not only the motions of the robots, but how the robots interact with the humans, where the bottlenecks are in the production line. You can set up your whole line visually. They have all the standard equipment there and all kinds of nerdy stuff. So check that out at Visual Components. And on X, he's going Ballistic 5.
Mhm.
And with that, I'm going to say bye for now.
Bye, everyone.